Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Today we'll be diving into the book review of one of Nigeria's unsung heroines of our time, Mrs. Farida Waziri. She is most notably known as the former executive chairman of the EFCC between 2008 and 2011. But before her appointment as the EFCC chairman, she was a highly accomplished police officer and a lawyer. She published her memoirs in 2019 titled One Step Ahead: Life as a Spy, Detective, and Anti-Graft Czar. As always, I will leave a link in the description where you can get a book, and you stand a chance to win an autographed copy of the book, and all you need to do is drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. So without further ado, I'll jump straight right into the book's forward. Enjoy, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in the next video. I am pleased to write the foreword to this masterpiece. Mrs. Farida Waziri was an extraordinarily intelligent officer, and being invited to write the foreword for her book is an honor to me. I feel confident because I have interacted with her throughout her professional career. I knew her from the start of her police career, watched her progress up to her retirement, and followed her post-retirement activities, especially at the Economic and Financial Crimes EFCC. She towers in intelligence and character amongst her contemporaries. Her remarkable story is of benefit to our country now and in the future. I first met Mrs. Farida Waziri a few months into my posting to the Police College, Kaduna, as officer in charge of the recruits between May 1964 and June 1966. In the 2 years, the college successfully trained hundreds of policemen and women. The qualifying officers ultimately advanced to varied ranks before retirement. A few of them became superior police officers, and Mrs. Farida Waziri was one of them. She was a rare officer who rose to an enviable position of Assistant Inspector General AIG. The other was Mrs. Alabi Ogbatogbo, who became the director of the State Security Service in Bauchi State. In addition to the AIG rank, Mrs. Farida Waziri added the position of Executive Chairman of the EFCC to her achievements. Interestingly, the two female officers jointly topped their class in the final examinations at the Police College, although Farida had the edge over Aladi Ibrahim with a few points. Just as the book Farida Waziri, One Step Ahead, encapsulates her life as a spy, detective, and anti-graft boss, aptly portrays her personality. Her narrative vividly captures every moment as they occurred, even recollecting and presenting her childhood events with a poetic appeal. In every paragraph, she sincerely displays her character by the honesty with which she relayed each story. Going through her book also made me see the success that can accompany an individual's life when the spiritual and religious angles come into play. Ironically, Mrs. Farida Waziri wanted to become a reverend sister. No wonder she had the touch of simplicity and diligence that only a godly life can impose upon an individual. She did her job as a career police officer, and ending with the appointment to the prestigious Anti-Graft Commission dreaded by financial criminals. Destiny always plays out in the lives of those who have special missions to fulfill for humanity. It was therefore no accident that her going to Kaduna with the intent to enroll into a Catholic school and become a nun ended in meeting her spouse at the Nigerian Police College and picking a career in which she distinguished herself as one of Nigeria's best police officers. So true, Providence was always one step ahead in her life. Her decision to harmonize the religious differences in their marriage reveals her practical approach to life. She recognized that spiritual accord between couples is essential to a successful marriage. Within a few years of marriage, she made an interfaith switch that ushered a united front in their home. This choice, without a doubt, showed her as someone who shunned success that sacrifices marital harmony. Also, her choice to defer her educational pursuits until a more convenient time for the family is at variance with what most women then and now would do. It was a move that would win the heart of any husband anywhere. We see from her testimony how she quickly became an ideal detective and a thorough cop by following the instructions of her superior officer, Alhaji Gambo Jimeta. She was a woman who loved self-development and, despite being busy with family and office duties, still had time to educate herself. This behavior, in my view, portrays her as a woman who was not lazy by any standard. She is someone who could adequately deal simultaneously with multiple challenges any day. These and other qualities endeared her to all her bosses that she closely worked with, including several IGPs. Not many officers had close-range service with the IGPs. It was no wonder that she was the first female to head the EFCC since its inception. She was a woman of courage and strength. She did not deviate from her forthrightness in work, even after attempts on her life. She vividly described her experiences during the military era, particularly the coup d'etats, when she exhibited the ability always to uphold the truth in the face of certain risk. In summary, Mrs. Farida Waziri revealed in her memoir that she is a rugged fighter in life. I make this conclusion from her career choice, marriage, religious belief challenges, education, and accomplishments in the Nigerian police force. Her character shows in her confrontation with real and faceless enemies, pre-retirement preparations, being the wife of a diplomat, and becoming the boss of the EFCC. Her personality is visible in international relations, successful execution of cases at the EFCC, down to her handling the death of loved ones, including her husband. It is my pleasure, therefore, to present her first book to all. It is a recommended reading for all intellectual, moral, spiritual, and historical enrichment, and a literary treasure for every home, especially Nigerian police officers. Thank you. Alhaji Aliyu Ibrahim Atta, Inspector General of Police, retired, GCON, 29th August 2019, Abuja, Nigeria.
Farida, have you stopped doing 419? His voice sailed across the room. All heads turned in my direction. We were inside Aso Rock Villa. Those words came from General Abdusalami Abubakar. Mind you, he wasn't associating me with fraud. The former head of state is a very likable person with a massive sense of humor. His wisecrack was a reference to my previous duty as the Commissioner of Police in charge of the Special Fraud Unit. This department was combating the activities of advanced fee fraudsters, 419ers, which at the time was giving the country a bad name. The encounter with the general was slightly different from the other one I had with former Sokoto State Governor Attahiru Bafarawa several years later at an American embassy function. "Is that Farida Waziri?" The governor's voice boomed. "I heard you called me a wounded lion." I countered evenly. I heard you said I should be arrested. He roared with laughter. The backdrop to the conversation was his apprehension when I was chair of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. Whatever might be our differences, we had long ago buried the hatchet. We bore each other no grudge. But no lull encounters ended on a light note like this one. For good 3 years, faceless foes mounted vicious propaganda to clothe me with the wrong toga. Years after, some unforgiving persons continued to subject me to undeserved hatred. In their blind pursuit of revenge, they forgot that there's always another side to a story. In the following pages, I have tried to relate my life story as accurately as possible without undue emphasis on any set of events and without attaching sentiment to the facts. This book is not about my police career, and neither is it about EFCC. It is an overview of my odyssey. No one can narrate my story better than myself. Here I have made a modest attempt. Farida Mzambe Waziri, OFR, Abuja, June 2019. I was born and brought up in Boko in Benue State, Nigeria. My growing up years seemed long ago, but surprisingly, I have almost total recall of my childhood. The recollections were sharp and vivid in my mind's eye, as if they happened yesterday. Sometimes I wonder why I find it easier to remember childhood exploits than incidents of recent times, which sometimes come back with blurry details or as hazy flashbacks. What is it that makes childhood memories evergreen? In my case, I attribute my photographic memory to my childhood, to the alchemy of parental affection. When your parents love you lavishly, like you were the apple of your father's eye and your mother treasured you above anything, your childhood is bound to be like a paradise, and it is memory that can hardly lose color. The memory of a good childhood is an elixir for a lifetime. It is a secret chamber you retreat into to savor lost innocence whenever life becomes tedious and disenchanting. I had the good fortune of an eventful childhood. Boko was where it all happened. My first view of the world was a colorful portrait put together from experience filtered through the social-cultural milieu of Boko Town. My father, a Tiv man from Oshongo local government area, had arrived in Boko as a young man. There he became firmly rooted, flourished, and completed his life cycle. He married wives, built houses, spawned and raised his children, grew old and died all in Boko. I became a discerning kid in the 50s. At the time, Boko was a major Tiv town in the Benue Basin, a town with a bustling population of natives and settlers from neighboring local government areas of the old northern region. Old Boko was a mix of banal urbanity and rustic charms. We drank water from the tap, but bathing and washing of clothes were activities done in the streams and rivers. There was electricity sparingly. There was a cinema, mobile cinema brought to the football field from time to time. Christmas was a colorful period. The presence of the native authority and native police heightened the inhabitants' awareness of the importance of the town. There was Nkar Mission Hospital, where I was born on July 7th, 1949. I grew up in the marketing board era, when agriculture was the major sources of livelihood and regulated produce marketing was the mainstay of the local economy. Everyone I knew was either a trader who farmed or a farmer that traded. Everyone engaged in some trading of sorts, including my mother. She was a full-time housewife with no formal education who frequently dabbled in buying and selling of beans, which earned her healthy profits. The big companies of the time, UAC, UTC, Leventis, and John Holt, fueled the booming commerce. These corporations were the El Dorado of employment. Getting on their payroll was very competitive. Only a few were lucky. My father was one of the lucky ones. He was a John Holt foreman. I guess his formal education played a part. John Holt primarily exported Beniseed, soya beans, and other valuable crops from the northern parts of Nigeria, and my father played a significant role. Being a John Holt foreman was gratifying financially and socially. In the social strata of the time, our family was the upper crust. Those days, a man's social class was typified by the roof over his head. The thatch was the standard for the average home. Zinc symbolized the rich. Most homes were built of bricks and roofed with zinc. We were a well-to-do family. Our family was large. My father, Nyetahe Dio Azege, married 5 wives. My mother, Ngweshima Helen Azege, was 4th in the pecking order. Our household was surprisingly blissful. The women related to one another with candid friendliness. There was not a whiff of hatred in the air, and bickering was non-existent. Was there ever any acrimonious moment in the household? None that I can recall. If there was ever such a thing as perfect polygamy, our family, I think, was the epitome. Unfortunately, the utopia did not last. My father lost his job and his women left him too. They left him save my mother and the last wife. His job loss came with the reversal of fortune. He sold our big home of brick and zinc to a willing buyer to our wealthier neighbor. He was the native authority police chief and wanted to expand his home and cultivate a garden. I was barely 8 when we relocated to a smaller home in another neighborhood. I was too young to know the negative impacts of the change. However, I remember that people were kind to us. It was a period when the world seemed to be full of brothers keepers and good Samaritans. Friends, relatives, and neighbors willingly lent a helping hand. Such kindness must have cushioned the severe effect of our descent down the social ladder. Boko then was a society suffused with neighborly love. Care for others was a shared value. Empathy was deeply rooted. Benevolence was a common virtue. To the extent that absentee parents could count on neighbors to care for their children, and surrogate parents would not spare the rod for the unruly child. The discipline of the child was everyone's duty. Shared obligations of this nature strengthened the communal tie. Generally, human society was moderately innocent at the time. Stealing an old vice was rare. Thieves who stole crops from the farm and the occasional raiders who helped themselves to the pot of stew in the kitchen were the familiar crank tales. Even such incidents were few and far between. Those days you could leave your clothes outside to dry on the line for days and not one item of clothing would go missing. The central character of my childhood story is my father, the traveling John Holt foreman. In the small world of Boko, he was a local celebrity. In an age when a few miles around his home circumscribed man's world, father was an encyclopedia of distant lands, people, and cultures. They regarded him as a man of the world. His aptitude for foreign languages depicted his cosmopolitan character. Fluent in several northern Nigerian languages, he also spoke passable Igbo and Yoruba languages, spoken by two major ethnic groups of southern Nigeria. He could effortlessly mimic Yoruba songs. Father was charming and charismatic to the extent that people craved his company. His most significant appeal, however, was his stories. Colonial Europeans rated the Tiv the best storytellers in Africa. It was no hyperbole. Tiv stories then and now are theatrical. Back then, when storytelling was a vital folk activity and a binding force in the Tiv community, Father was a master of the arts. He was hugely talented, and his traveling further enriched his repertoire of stories. In the evening, a crowd usually gathered around him to hear riveting accounts of his adventures. I would hang around there trying to catch every word from his lips. Most times, I'd ignore my mother's call for dinner. I'd wait until Father concluded his narration. I've heard this story 1,000 times. Mother used to scoff in exasperation. However, in truth, Father's narratives, 1,000 times repeated, were fresh at each retelling. People visited our house solely to hear his anecdotes. Moreover, Father had an endless supply of tales. Were he to live in the later era, I'm sure he would have been a consummate entertainer. He was a doting father to me. Among his 3 sons and 3 daughters, I was vividly his favorite child. Father was open with his bias. He was also unapologetic about it. When confronted with his complaints of favoritism, he tried to justify it even further. "She's so good," in reply to his critics. He was overly protective of me. None dare raise a hand against me, including himself. As far as I could recall, the only time he hit me was the day he caught me climbing a tree in the backyard. The garden in our backyard had lots of fruit-bearing trees, including pawpaw, mango, and guava. Growing up among 3 brothers, I was agile and tried to outdo the boys in the physical activities peculiar to the male child, so I became naturally adept at climbing trees. One day, I fell from a mango tree and dislocated my hand. I was afraid to tell anyone. I kept the injury to myself until the arm became swollen and intensely painful. Panicked by the discovery, my parents whisked me straight to the hospital. "Don't climb trees again," Father reprimanded me mildly after the treatment at the hospital. However, I disregarded his warning, and as soon as my hand healed, the next time he caught me climbing a tree, he was so angry that he slapped me. He justly chastised me for disobedience and the stupidity of putting myself in harm's way. Save for this one occasion, we had an extraordinary relationship. "Don't you know she's going to be a reverend sister?" "Oh, I see. She even behaves exactly like them. It is good to know we have someone from the convent." The sarcasm often eliciting laughter from others and tears from me. Once they found the easiest way to upset me, family members and peers alike would not let me off the hook. I did not go out of my way to be associated with Catholic sisters. The Boko milieu in which I grew up had a broad Catholic facet. A reasonable number of British and Irish Reverend Fathers and Sisters were part of the local populace. I remember vividly the English Reverend Father called Sherwood and Mother Superior Catherine. I was baptized in the Catholic Church. My baptismal name was Victoria. Evangeline, my confirmation name, was given to me by a certain Sister Evangeline from Ireland. My education took place in Catholic institutions, at the Queen of the Holy Rosary School, I was immersed deeper in Catholicism, Eucharist, confession, sacraments, and liturgies. I knew everything, including the Catholic hymns, which I knew by heart. As one nurtured by the Catholic system, mirroring the emissaries of Catholicism then was a natural consequence. My inclination towards Reverend Sisters, piety, and all was not superficial. I became close to them at an early age. I usually joined them in their works and leisure. They watered my thirst for knowledge by providing books, including the cherished Agatha Christie books that helped to nurture my reading ability. What's more, ours was a deep-dyed Catholic family. Our family produced the first Nigerian reverend in Tivland. His name was Brother Valentine. His Tiv name was Tage Gogo. Tall and massive, Brother Valentine was a highly disciplined person. He was a veteran of the Second World War, and everyone feared him, including my father. Young people spoke about him in low tones, and adults deferred to him. We called him Onion behind his back. The idea was, if you don't tread carefully around him, you'd end up shedding tears, like when you bring an onion peel close to your eyes. He was a sturdy symbol of priesthood for us, and the family relied upon his guidance on miscellaneous issues. For instance, when matters required weighty decisions, the instruction to my father was, go and talk to Brother Valentine. Incidentally, I grew up in his charge. I used to spend my holidays in Umahia, where he was a teacher at the Holy Ghost College. He later got a posting to St. Augustine College in Lafia, now Nasarawa State. I traveled to Lafia during school breaks. At St. Augustine, he was the only Nigerian whose living quarters was among the white missionaries. The school principal was Reverend Father Murray, who later became the Bishop of the Catholic Archdiocese of Makurdi. Mada Village, the location of St. Augustine College, was a rural community needing corporal works of mercy. Missionaries trekked into the hinterland to pray with the villagers every night before retiring to bed. Together with Brother Valentine and others, I led the way with the tele lamp to the night prayers. I tried to be useful by helping Reverend Fathers to discharge some duties. I took charge of chores like needlework, flower arrangement, and watering of plants. Sometimes I spent hours sewing camp bedding, stitching quilts, and stuffing them with cotton wool. I was not the only family member who was close to Brother Valentine. Others who visited him included my sister, Rosuli, and Fidelis Benyi, another member of the family who schooled at St. Augustine. I was under his charge. Brother Valentine trained us in Catholic discipline. The values he installed in us have a lasting influence on our lives. I traveled to Kaduna in 1966 to write an admission examination into Sacred Heart College. The institution was an extension of the Queen of the Holy Rosary. Reverend Sisters who recommended it to me described it as a great Catholic institution that would help me to progress. They worked hard to get me in there. But I had to write an entrance examination. That was what took me to Kaduna. There I lived with my uncle, Asar Inga, an instructor at the police college. Both the police college and Sacred Heart College were located on Independence Way, Kaduna. Uncle Asar lived in the inspector's quarters with his two wives. The women were like sisters to each other, as they gossiped, joked, and laughed together, with their husband being the subject of their idle talk. They especially poked fun at his baldness. Friendly and welcoming, they made me feel at home. The police college had its own attraction, such as recruits, march, drills, and exercises, and the personnel parade. The college commandant was an Englishman called John Allardyce. His deputy was Thompson, also English. Aside from the spectacles, I had no interest in police affairs. As far as I was concerned, the barrack was just a stopover. I was expectant of the admission and hoped to be absorbed into the sanctuary of the Catholic institution down the road. One day, my uncle Asar took me to the police officer's mess for my first experience of the tombola. I sat close to him at his table. Across from us was a young man that openly ogled at me. His gaze was intense, and it made me uncomfortable. Why was he staring at me? I was sure that I did not know him from anywhere. I was seeing him for the first time. Yet he kept his eyes on me. A few minutes later, he made his way to our table, greeted my uncle, and tried to borrow a pen from him. "You are not serious. If I give you mine, what will I use?" retorted Uncle Asar. I gave him the biro I had with me. He thanked me and went back to his seat. A week later, my uncle's wife told me a young man came looking for me while I was out. He said he wanted to return a pen he borrowed from you. Is it true? I remember the young man who was ogling at me at the upstairs mess. However, the pen's ink was half full. He could as well have kept it, I thought. A few days later, he checked again. Uncle Asar's wives began to joke about him. We think there is more to his visit than the need to return a biro. I thought as much too. Later, I learned his name was Ajuji Waziri, a law instructor at the police college. The third time he came calling was on a very cold Harmattan morning. He was dressed in uniform, on his way to work. He came with the same story to return my pen. My uncle's wives called me to attend to him. I told him he could keep the pen. He thanked me. He took his leave after a few minutes, but requested that I see him off. I declined, citing the cold weather outside. He left quietly. I thought I'd seen the last of him. He showed up at our door the next day bearing a parcel bearing 3 cardigans, bought newly from Kingsway store. I don't think I can take this from you, I had protested, but Uncle Asar's stentorian voice ordered me to collect the presents. I was embarrassed that my uncle stumbled on this little clumsy affair. Perhaps he didn't want to appear ungracious. The young man's motive was becoming more apparent. It made me uncomfortable. I prayed for the timely release of the admission at Sacred Heart College. Unknown to me, a conspiracy that would alter the course of my life was already underway. Uncle Asar had come home one day with an announcement. Nigerian police force was about to recruit women for the first time in the north. It'd be a good opportunity to test my knowledge, he said to me. The suggestion did not appeal to me. He swept aside my objection. It is nothing tedious. They will simply take a measurement of your height and your chest. Then you will write a test. After all, you have been idling at home. Writing a test will be good for you. It will be like a mental exercise so that all you learned at school will not disappear from your brain since you are planning to go to Sacred Heart. No one could win an argument with Uncle Asar, so I went for the recruitment exercise. Indeed, as he said, it was anything but tedious. They measured my height and I was tall enough. My chest measurement was okay. The written test was scheduled for the following week. The day arrived. Go and test your IQ. You have been out of school for a while, Uncle Asar cajoled. I went to write the exam. Uncle Asar returned home in the evening in high spirits. Congratulations, you did very well. You passed the test, he announced gleefully. He turned to his wives. This calls for a celebration. Let's go and eat in Hamdallah Hotel. I had never been to a hotel in my life, so I was excited. The way Uncle Asar made a big deal of my excellent results at the test made me feel good. It was a big moment in the household. I had no idea it was a trap. But I became wary of him when he came home another day with an update. The recruiters are coming for the selection. He urged me to complete the process. Uncle Asar was not one who talked in vain. He was good at arguments. He always had his way. I tried to be firm this time. Uncle, I told you I want to further my education. I want to be a lawyer. I want to go to university. He changed gears, cleverly pulled an emotional lever. He played on my fears. Steve had a great phobia for river blindness and guinea worm, 2 common afflictions in the Benue area. They were Uncle Asar's trump cards. He played it up crassly. If you pass the recruitment test, you would be sent to do medical checkup. The examination would test everything about your health, and if they find river blindness or guinea worms, you'll be treated for free. A girl's wit is no match for a man's wiles. Uncle Asar outwitted me. To cut a long story short, I enlisted in the Nigerian police force. By the time my admission into the Sacred Heart College eventually came, I was halfway into the police training. I thought I was assured. I could abandon the training and go back to college. Now I was told deserters don't go unpunished. How can you become a criminal at this young age? I was young, naive, easily frightened. The threat worked. I felt tricked and guilty. I was unhappy and confused. Brother Valentine wasn't pleased with the developments. The news that he was coming to Kaduna filled me with trepidation. Surprisingly, he was calm. He took me to the Sacred Heart Catholic Church and handed me over to the white priest and mother superiors. When they spoke with me, their disappointment was not totally veiled. They agonized like people who had lost something precious. Their anguish got to me. Innocent, very hardworking, and spiritually strong was their assessment of me. Their unspoken thought was loud. She's going into the sinful world where she'd be spoiled. The church expected that I became a nun, but they saw me going away farther from it. The Reverend Father and the Mother Superior tried to make me comfortable. They gave me assurances and integrated into the sacred Catholic community. I joined the missions dance classes where I learnt how to dance to waltz, blues, and foxtrot. A few meters down the road in the police college, I was taking basic instructions in crime fighting and learning the rudiments of law enforcement. I missed the opportunity to continue my education at Sacred Heart College, but I did not waste my time wallowing in recrimination or resentment. The same singular dedication I had devoted to education was redirected to the training at the police college in Kaduna. Alhaji Aliu Atta, a gentleman in uniform and a prince, was the one who recruited me into the Nigerian Police Force, NPF. He was OC Basic Wing, the officer in charge of training and later one of the best Inspector General of Police. The drills at the police training college were intense, tough, and thorough, yet I came out with flying colors at the end of 9 months. I won the baton for best recruit. I took that as a good omen that I would fare well in the path I had found myself.